Yesterday, did something happen? Did something happen yesterday?
Yes, it was Martin Luther King Day.
Yes. That's a good one. Well, in addition to Martin Luther King Day, a certain person, Donald Trump, was sworn back into the White House as the 47th president. Now, high-profile Democrats were in attendance along with Republican officials who all sat behind big tech oligarchs with the best seats in the House. Yeah. Trump gave a preview of what we're in for the next 4 years. Take a look.
My recent election is a mandate to completely and totally reverse a horrible betrayal. For American citizens, January 20th, 2025 is Liberation Day. We will begin the process of returning millions and millions of criminal aliens back to the places from which they came. I will direct all members of my cabinet to marshal the vast powers at their disposal to defeat what was record inflation and rapidly bring down costs and prices. We will forge a society that is colorblind and merit-based. It will henceforth be the official policy of the United States government that there are only two genders, male and female. My proudest legacy will be that of a peacemaker and unifier. That's what I want to be.
So if he's sending all the criminals away, where is he going? And what better way to unify
Greenland.
the country than by ripping families apart and punishing anyone who doesn't fall in line? So I watched the whole thing because I have a certain masochistic streak in me.
You do.
What about the rest of you?
Yeah, I watched it. Just the speech part. A lot of the revelry, it was hard because this is not someone I voted for, so I did not feel like sitting around and watching it. But the speech itself, I remember when it was done, my first reaction was, you know, what is this country he speaks of? Because I immediately couldn't reconcile the way I see the country and the people and how it is right now and where he saw it. He didn't say carnage, but he said carnage pretty much in everything else. Do you remember the reference from his first inauguration when he said carnage? I just kind of felt this dark feeling. And then he had this kind of martyr-like, you guys are downtrodden and almost irreparable. You can't save this place, but I can. And it had this godlike complex without any Jesus qualities. It was kind of like a juxtaposition. But I was really disappointed, not surprised, just to be clear, but disappointed that there wasn't one kind thing to say about the outgoing administration. Because even...
Au contraire, he was merciless to the outgoing.
That's my point. That's my point. Even if you find it really hard, there could have been. They spent the morning together. They had a welcome tea. President Biden and Vice President Harris did everything we all criticized Donald Trump throughout the door. They did all the traditions of handing off the baton. And he couldn't even muster up one small thing to say, thank you for kindly welcoming us back or something. It was a kind of a gut punch of sorts.
Well, that's not who he is, right? I mean, he's not a statesman. That's not who he is. And I decided to protect my peace and celebrate Martin Luther King Jr. Day yesterday. So I did not watch the inauguration. My sorority sisters of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated had a service day in Harlem yesterday, and I enjoyed that. I went to Buffalo Wild Wings and watched Notre Dame, unfortunately not be victorious, but I went with a bunch of my law school buddies, and we ate wings and thank you, Tony, who's the manager there, for making me feel good. But the one thing that I did think about was the hypocrisy of having a man be inaugurated to be president on the same day as we commemorate MLK. And that same man saying that he was going to get rid of diversity, equity, and inclusion.
The irony of it.
The irony of it, because Martin Luther King not only wanted racial equality, he wanted economic equality. And that is something that people tend to miss. And I want to remind people that he said that Black Americans deserved reparations for the injustices they faced. He argued that reparations were a form of justice, in fact, not charity. And he said, quote, "It's all right to tell a man to lift himself by his own bootstraps, but it is cruel jest to say to a bootless man that he ought to lift himself by his own bootstraps."
Yeah.
And so in thinking about that, and Donald Trump saying things that this country would be a meritocracy, you're talking about a man who didn't become the president of the United States because of merit. He hasn't had he had no political experience whatsoever. He had no business experience. He was given everything that he has. He is a legacy hire. He is, if anything, a DEI hire, a didn't earn it hire. And so, you know, those were just some of the things that I was thinking about.
So I watched it. I always watched the inauguration. I was covering it for CNN as well. But I was watching and thinking it's time to retire the phrase normalizing Donald Trump. Donald Trump is normalized, whether you like it or not. 75 million people voted for him. He is now as much a part of American history as George Bush, Barack Obama, and any other two-term president. And I was shocked by the imagery of he left 4 years ago in disgrace. He left, barely anyone showed up when he announced his reelection 2 years ago. And now he came back to D.C. like a conquering king. He had the biggest titans of industry there. He had celebrities, he had fashion designers, he had Democrats and every former president there. And I think that it's a moment to take note of why he won and the reasons that he did, but also Democrats are not a footnote in this. They had 4 years to beat him. They had the chance to make a case against him. 4 years ago, they had the White House, the House, the Senate, and Silicon Valley. Now they have none of those above. My posture is this. You guys know my criticisms of Donald Trump. They remain. I'm going to pray for the president. I'm going to thank him when he does things that are good, like the hostage deal. I commend him. I am grateful for that. And I'm going to call it out when he does things that are reckless and dangerous. Getting the Israeli hostages and American hostages. And I'm going to call it out when he does things that are...
You're talking about Trump now?
Yes, that are...
I thought it was Biden who's been negotiating.
Both worked in coordination. Well, and finally, and I'm going to call it out when he does something that I think is dangerous and reckless, like we're going to get to pardoning dangerous January 6th. Yeah.
Well, I have to say, I was in Guatemala. I was there for a funeral, which reminded me of how frail life is, and not to waste time on doing things that bring you no joy and make you infuriated, like watching her swearing in.
Yeah.
So I didn't watch a single second of it. I did read the speech, and I read a lot about it, and I saw pictures. And when I was reading the speeches, I was coming back. First of all, I'm going to pray for America. I'm also going to say, he calls himself a peacemaker. He wants to invade Panama, people. Panama is our ally. They haven't done a damn thing. Everything he is saying about Panama, and it struck me because I was in the region. Okay, that region is full of crazy people who don't like the United States, like Cuba, like Nicaragua, like Venezuela. The country of Panama is our longest, strongest ally in that region. Everything he is saying about the Chinese running the Panama Canal is a lie. It is run by the Panama Canal Authority. So that brought back that he is a liar in chief. That brought back that he's not going to be a peacemaker. I mean, this guy is already in verbal war with Canada, Greenland, Denmark. By the way, they want to take over Canada and Greenland. He can't even stand in 20-degree weather. Has somebody explained to me?
Wait a minute.
I do think we have to be careful to not take the bait with Trump and always we take things literally that he says, cover him honestly, but I don't know that I think he's going to invade the Panama Canal. When there's an order to DOD and we've got Marines headed there, let's call it out. But often
who's
these
he
things,
gonna order at
often
DOD?
these
Peter
things are
Hegseth?
become distractions from things that deserve more.
There's no generals to push back. That's one of the problems. There are no guardrails on Trump right now.
No.
There is nobody in that cabinet. There's no John Kelly. There's no General Mattis. There is nobody to push back on him when he calls and he says something absolutely insane. They've got both houses of Congress. They've got the Supreme Court in his pocket. And so if Democrats want to get some guardrail, get out of your funk, stand up, protest, call out the abuses of power, and get ready to at least retake one house of Congress in the next 2 years.
And I might add, come on this show.